I'm not a barber, but I have been in the barber industry for a while. And what I've been wanting to do is get people like yourself, the People's Barber, on this podcast. And the name of this podcast is the BarberBiz podcast. And I'm working with BarberView TV. And BarberView TV is a new app that is just putting a lot of content on there for barbers. And I've interviewed Kenny Duncan. Tyreek helped me to reach out and make this happen. So I'm glad we're here. I did a bit of research on you that you went from barber school and you were in the military. I was in the military as well. I served in the Marine Corps. What branch of service did you serve in?
The Army.
Okay, cool. Did you ever serve overseas?
We were in training to go overseas, and I tore every ligament in my right knee.
Ooh,
Yeah.
man, that's crazy. And what was your MOS in the Army?
In 2000 as a clerk. I was just supposed to be behind a desk, but you know, the military, it's the demands of what they need. So after 9/11, they pulled us to a MP unit, and MPs trained us for about 6 weeks, gave us a badge and a gun, and said, guard the gates.
I served, this was back in 02, right when I graduated high school. But yeah, man, few things I do want to go over. I do want to understand what got you into barbering. What was your first haircut? I do like to ask that question. And then I do want to get into the Texas Barber Expo when I know it was just finished. So I love kind of having these conversations post event so we could talk a little bit about it. But tell me, what got you into barbering? Why did you grab a pair of clippers and put it up to somebody's head? Tell me about that.
Like 15, 16 years old in high school. And during that time frame, if you were anything like me, you wanted a haircut at least once a week. You wanted to look fresh. And I grew up real humble beginnings. I grew up here in South Texas, and we didn't have air conditioning in my house. Mom and dad's like, hey, man, we can't afford that. And they said, you can only get a haircut once a month, and that's it. So in the summertime, I saved up those 30, 40 bucks, and I went to Walmart and bought myself a pair of wall clippers. I know people say, you say wall because you're with wall. No, they were really a pair of wall clippers. Came home and just attempted to cut my hair. Now, I was able to do the sides by just looking in the mirror in the restroom. But then when it came to the back, I'm like, oh, snap. I didn't realize, like, how am I supposed to do the back? For a handheld mirror, we don't have one. So I take my mom's 6-foot mirror that she has hanging behind the door, and I put it on my shoulder. So I got this 6-foot mirror hanging on my shoulders, trying to cut like this and look at myself in the other mirror. Needless to say, for about, probably the first 10 cuts were horrible. But I dealt with it and wore a hat summertime, so it didn't really matter. And then eventually it got a little better. And then a couple of friends started asking, hey, cut your hair? Because then I started cutting my hair every Sunday to look fresh for Monday for school, and then every Friday to look good for the weekend.
Oh, that's great. If I ask this question to a young buck that just started cutting 2 years back, he'll tell me about his favorite YouTuber or his favorite influencer. How the hell did you know what to do? Did you just wing it? Did you just go for it? Or like, did you see a movie, or what made you think you could cut your own hair?
Honestly, I don't know. As a kid, you go get a haircut. You're sitting, this is back in the day, you sit in the barbershop for 2-3 hours. And what are you doing? You're just looking at the barbers cut hair. So eventually I was like, hey man, maybe I can try this. My aunt, she was a cosmetologist. So she was a stylist. She did mainly women's hair, but I would sometimes go to the salon in the summertime and just sweep up and stuff like that. So I saw a little bit of the guys doing the guys' haircuts. Nothing too crazy. Nothing to the fact where I thought that I knew enough to do it. I just said, screw it. Let me give it a shot.
No, great. So now here you go. You put the 6-foot mirror on your back and you start cutting your own hair. You doing it Fridays to look good for the weekend. That's going well. A few friends asked for a haircut. So tell me about the first time you took it from your head, put it to somebody else's head. When did that happen?
It was actually my really good friend when in high school. He was like, hey man, I need a haircut. You think you can hook me up? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I said, I've never cut no one's hair. He's like, screw it. I don't care. And I was like, it's free. He's like, all right. So that was on his mom and dad's back porch in the summer, and probably took me 3 hours to do because we're wiping sweat, going inside, trying to cool down a little bit, coming back outside.
Oh man. And what kind of haircut was it? What were you doing?
We were
And
just doing
using it and using the same clippers, the same wall clippers.
the same raw clippers. So they would get hot as hell. Because what a lot of people don't understand is, now I know this because I'm a professional in the industry, but the consumer clippers, what you buy at Walmart, aren't meant to do haircut after haircut after haircut. The motor's not meant for that. That clipper is meant to do maybe 1 haircut a day, 2 push it. And really, you don't want to do it back to back because it'll get hot, especially if you're taking 2 or 3 hours to do a haircut. So yeah, same clippers. And we would have to take breaks because he's like, nah, it's burning my scalp. So we'd have to take breaks. I didn't know there was like blade ice where you can cool the clippers down and oil it and disinfect it. That's why I tell everyone, like, I was cutting hair for 5 or 6 years before I went to barber school, and I never cleaned my tools. I never oiled my tools because we didn't have YouTube and influencers showing us this stuff. You just had to know it, and I didn't know it.
Yeah. No, that's good. And so now you're in high school, you cut your friend's hair, you're burning them up on the back porch, right? So now let's go to the next step. What was the next big step in your barbering career?
What happened was in high school, it was more free. And then I think
Right.
maybe my senior year was kind of like, hey, man, if you can give me $5, that'd be cool. So people gave me $3 to $5. And then that's when I joined the Army. So that's when it changed a little more, because when I joined the Army, I was going outside the base. And let's be real transparent. There aren't barbers the way they are now when we was in the military. They were the 5-7 minute cuts, quick $7 to $8, and they would get you in and out real quick.
Vacuum cleaner on the wire.
So
I've gotten those cuts before.
Yeah, we all did. So I'd have to go back to the base. And I'd be like,
Do you got a mow? Do you got a mow? Where's your mow at? I'm gonna go. You didn't tell me about your mow. I'm gonna chop it off.
Yeah, like, oh, you had a mow.
Oh, yeah.
So I go back to the base and try to make it look somewhat more presentable. And back then, I wasn't getting edge ups neither. And most Latinos, unless you were Black or Puerto Rican, you really weren't getting an edge up. Well, my battle buddy was Puerto Rican. So he's just like, hey, Morin, let me line you up. And I was like, do what? He's like, let me give you an edge up. And I'm like, all right, cool. So he would do the edge up. And then he's like, you can cut my hair, because he saw me fix up my haircut. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So then for the next 2 or 3 years, I was the barber cutting hair, but I couldn't do a lineup. So then if they wanted a lineup, he was the one lining them up. I was doing the blending, cutting. He was lining people up.
Hey, making it work. And so I heard you told me that you hurt your leg and you ended up getting out of, did you get disability from the Army?
That was a blessing in disguise, because I had about 2 years left in my contract when I tore every ligament on my right knee. I was stationed at Fort Hood at the time, which for me to home is only a 4 or 5 hour drive. So my second orthopedic surgeon was like, hey, I see you're from Texas. You're only a couple hours away. I said, I am. He goes, I have a friend who's a great orthopedic surgeon down there at the Navy base, because there's a Navy base here in my city. He's, would you like to go home? And I was like, go home? Like, I'm active duty. What do you mean go home? He's like, I can get you orders to go home, and all you have to do is make sure you keep showing up to your therapy and get your surgeries. Now I'm gonna still get paid active duty for the next 2 years? He's like, yeah. I'm like, shoot, send me home. He did. He sent me home, and it was a blessing in disguise. I come home. It sucked that I got hurt, but it was a blessing that I was able to come home and still get active duty pay. At the time, a buddy of mine calls, hey, can you come cut my hair? Well, can I go to the house for a haircut? I was like, yeah, sure. So I came to the house. Girlfriend at the time was now my wife. When he left, she's like, hey, what are you gonna do like in the future? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, for a living. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not even worried about that right now. I'm trying to just get my knee fixed.
Yeah.
And she was the one who recommended, why don't you try barber school? And I was like, barber school? Like, I never thought of, at the time, haircuts were probably $7 or $8. So I'm like, I never thought of barbering as an actual career. It was just a little side hustle I was doing. I said, but man, I don't know if this is going to make financial means to afford a family if we get married or whatnot. And she was like, you ain't doing nothing now. Just go for it. Right. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm not doing nothing. Rode in barber school. That's when I learned a lot of more barbering techniques.
Now, let me ask you a question. When you enrolled, did you use your GI Bill to go? Can you talk to me a little bit about the importance of the GI Bill and being able to go to school?
Fortunately, the school I went to wasn't VA qualified, so I didn't. Wow. But the school, because I told them, hey, I'm a veteran. You guys have this program? They said, no, we don't. We were trying to figure it out, but we haven't yet. But there's another program they told me about, and it's a state-funded program. And they said, it's if you have a disability, the state will cover your school. And I said, I don't have a disability. She goes, you're walking with a limp. And I'm like, oh, this is temporary. I just messed up my knee like really bad. I'm going through surgeries and 2 years of therapy. She's like, you may be able to qualify. I said, okay. So I had a meeting with that program, and military, they lose every one of our files. So put in the application, they said, okay, now we just need to get files of your medical records. Once we get the files and we see everything's legit, you'll be approved. And I said, oh, you're never going to get that. That's going to take you a year or more. I said, but here you go. I pulled out my binder and I said, I have medical files right here. They said, you have a copy of your medical files? I was like, yeah, the military loses everything. So every time I went to sick call or anything, give me a copy. Give me a copy. The counselor looked over it all. He's like, wow, you're approved. You can start tomorrow. So went back to the
Wow.
school. School freaked out because they said that's never happened. It normally takes upwards of 3 to 6 months to get approved. While I was in school with them, I got to know the owners really well. And then I actually connected them with the VA. So by the time I graduated, they were VA approved.
Wow. That is amazing, man. I love that story. That's great. That's just a matter of the idea of when I went to do it, it wasn't there. I want to make sure it's there for the next man. There's a lot of military guys that deal with PTSD and deal with issues, and they are in a similar position. I do have this GI Bill to help me go to school, but I don't know what school to go to because I'm a little jacked up. Like I was in the military, whether it's a mental disability, whether it's a physical disability, some of that's there. And they go, and then you run into all those roadblocks because they don't got your DD 214 or your approval. The whole nightmarish situation, but it's great that you were able to set that up for the next man so it'd be a little bit smoother for them. How long ago was that? How many years ago?
I've been licensed 17 years.
So for the past 17 years, there's probably guys getting their license because of something you did. Is that school still around? It is. So now you're in school, right? On disability, and you're getting some money from the military. You can come to the table, you can do different things. I heard your interview where you said you went from school, you went to a barbershop, and you opened up several shops pretty quickly, but then you also downsized pretty quickly as well. Talk to me a little bit about that, because the thing is, a lot of times we'll hear the success stories, right? Like, hey, we got 7 locations. We just opened another location. And there's a lot of talk about the success stories, but if you're having a 10-minute conversation, 8.5 minutes of it is the success story. And then 1 minute of it was a little tough. But tell me about what that was like, having those different successes, but then losing the shops and then bouncing back.
What happened was I graduated barber school, and then I went to go get a job at a barber shop that my sister worked with a girl, and her husband owned the shop. So I immediately had a shop to go work at, and I was like, all right, cool. So I went, and I was on commission. I know a lot of barbers who talk mess. No, don't go work on commission. The shop owner's stealing from you. I had no customers. I was not going to go do booth rent when I knew I wasn't going to make enough money to pay it. So I went on commission. It was 60-40. I got 60%. The shop got 40%. It helped me grow. I started picking up some customers. I did notice that there were different things about the shop that I was like, man, if they did this, I think we can get more customers. Or if they just changed this. And then I told some of the other barbers, and they're like, Ricker, why don't you do it? And I'm like, because if I do it with my money, it's not beneficial to me. It's beneficial to the owner. I don't understand why I should do it. The owner should do it. It's his business, right? One day, my mom came to the barbershop to bring my nephew. At the time, he was probably 5 or 6. And she's like, I got to use the restroom. I was like, you don't want to use this restroom. Like, it was bad, bro. When I go in there, it was worse than corner store highway restrooms, right? I picked up the toilet seat with my foot too. So I was like, I lived right around the block. So I was like, Mom, go to my house. Here are the keys to my house. Go to my house. That weekend, I felt so bad. And I felt like the man upstairs telling me, hey, man, you were that embarrassed that you didn't let your mom use the restroom. Take care of it. Just fix it. Make it right. So that weekend, I went. The shop was closed. I had a key to the shop. I went in and I started cleaning everything up. And it was so bad, we didn't even have cleaning supplies in the shop. So I had to go to the local store to get the cleaning supplies, cleaned it all up. I did so good of a job that I actually peeled the paint off the walls. I'm like, oh, crap. My dad's a painter. I grew up painting with him as a kid. So I was like, let me go get some paint. And I'll just paint the restroom real quick. Did that. Bought some nice air freshener. Now the toilet seat looked all jacked because it probably hadn't been changed out in 5 years. So I put a new toilet seat. I go back, buy another toilet seat, put it all in there. I spent about $50 of my own money, right? And this was on a Sunday. We were open Monday through Saturday. We get to the shop Monday. I was the first one there because I lived right around the corner. The other barber showed up. Then the owner shows up and he's like, hey, who did that to the restroom? And I said, I did. And all I expected him to say was, wow, man, that's crazy. Thank you. That's all I expected. His response was, why? And I'm not paying you for that. There, I'm like, wow. I was like, I don't want to work for this guy much longer. I got to do something and start saving up some money so I can make the move or go open up my own place because, yeah, all I wanted was a thank you. I didn't care to get any money back. I just wanted a simple thank you. That was around month 4 working there. Month 6, I show up to the barbershop. There's an eviction notice on our door. I call the owner, no answer. Text them, no answer. The landlord just so happened to come by while I was out there. And I said, hey, sir, can I get my tools? Because as a barber, we need our tools. We can go anywhere. He's like, hey, I'm sorry, son, but no one can get anything out the building until I get my money. And I was like, how much does he owe you? He said, 6 months worth. And I'm like, shit, the whole time I've been here, this dude ain't been paying rent. And I'm like, what the heck? And he told me the dollar amount. And he tells me, I've called him for the last 2 months and he hasn't been responding to me. He goes, if you pay me the money he owes me, the barbershop's yours and everything in it belongs to you. And I was like, me? He's like, yeah, there is nothing wrong with me paying him and now it becomes mine. Ethically, I'm a man of faith and I just feel that would have been wrong. So I did it. I called him again, no answer. So that's when I called the number 2 guy. He answers. He's like, hey, Rick, what's going on? I tell him, he's like, what? No way. I said, yeah. He's like, all right, give me about an hour or 2. I'll figure it out. I said, okay, cool. Calls me about an hour later and says, all right, come to the shop. I said, cool, go back to the shop. I said, we're good. He's like, we're good. I said, what now? He goes, it's my shop now. I pay the landlord. Well, what about the owner? What about me? He's like, owner's going to say he's going to work for me. And you're going to work for me. Everything's going to stay the same. I was like, I'm cool with that, bro. As long as I got a job, I'm cool with that. So that happened. Needless to say, the owner didn't last but maybe 2 weeks because he wasn't alpha dog no more. So he bounced. He's like, I don't want to be around here no more. It isn't my rules. I'm out of here. Now it's just me, number 2 guy, and another guy that was there before me. So it's 3 of us there. Around month 10 or 11, I said around month 3 or 4, I wanted to start saving up some money to possibly open up my own shop or make the move. Well, in between that time is when the eviction happened. And I liked the new guy who owned it. He was great. But I had already put it in my head that I was going to go do my own thing. So I told him it was about month 11 or 12. I've been there and I said, hey, I'm going to open up my own shop. I just want to give you a heads up. I don't want to be in competition with you. I learned a lot from you guys. You guys are great barbers. You guys have taught me a lot. So I'm not going to open up nowhere near. I'm actually going to open up in a smaller town outside of here, about 35 minutes away. He's like, nice. Why out there? And I was like, oh, because a lot of my customers, they drive from that area. So I don't mind being the one person and saving all their time. He's like, got you. He's like, how much money do you have saved up? I told him. And then he said, why don't you give me that dollar amount and this barbershop belongs to you? And I said, what about you? He's like, I'm going to work for you. And I'm like, what? He's like, Rick, I'm not a businessman, bro. I'm a barber. I'm a hell of a barber. But this business aspect of it, it's very tough. It's financially unstable for me. I can't figure it out. I've been trying, and it's too much stress for me. And I said, okay, you want to do this? He's like, we'll do this. Well, I had a customer who was an attorney. So he wrote up a contract for me, emailed me. I printed it out right then and there, gave him the money that I had saved up, and that barbershop became mine.
Now, let me ask you a question. First of all, that's what I want from this podcast is for you to be able to tell that in-depth story because then people begin to relate and be able to make that connection with you. What I have found is that I heard this teacher one time and it talked about, I can't see me, right? And I can't see myself. I can see you, you can see me. We look through our eyes. The only way that we see ourselves is by looking in the mirror and reflecting and taking the time to reflect. And that's the way that you see yourself. So you can see if there's any blemishes or if your beard's long or whatever the case may be. So if you had to take time to reflect back and look at that specific scenario, what do you think the issue was with the other owner that just was very adamant about, hey, I'm not going to pay you for what you did in the bathroom or wasn't paying the rent? Now, when you reflect back, where do you think, what was the misunderstanding? What is it that he didn't know or understand that you feel like he should have?
I think maybe he just had a lot of self issues going on. Honestly, I have no clue. I just think it was a lot of maybe he had like maybe 4 or 5 small children, probably all under 6. I know he was married. So maybe there were some issues in the family. Maybe.
And what did you learn from that? What was your takeaway from that? Because you were treated a certain way and now you have that information. What did you learn from that?
I still do everything at my barbershop.
Right.
But if they take out the trash and go put it out without me asking for it, I was like, hey, man, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And to them, it's like nothing. They're like, bro, it was full. What am I supposed to do? And I'm like, that was exactly my mind frame. Like, hey, if it's full, just take it out. Just do the right thing. Just do what's supposed to do. So it's little things like that I always thank them for, appreciate them for just doing the right thing. Simple as that.
And that's what I was getting to. Like, it seems like it taught you a lesson like, man, it's important to appreciate my guys as an owner. Because many times we hear this, and Tyreek, I love when I put out content for Tyreek. So I always monitor the comments to see what type of engagement it gets. And if he's yelling at the owner, like, hey, man, you should be helping your barber and don't cheat him out on commission, or he attacks the owner, like, hey, step your game up. All the barbers go in there, yeah, he better. But then sometimes he flips and he's like, hey, man, as a barber, you need to look out for the owner. And then all the owners are like, yeah, that's right. We did a video last week where he said, you left that French fry right there. And I just left that French fry there. And I looked at that French fry for 2 weeks, seeing if any one of y'all is going to pick them. Nobody took, and a lot of people commented on that because it's true. They lived through that. Can you tell me about a time where you felt like you appreciated someone and you've gotten good feedback from that?
It was at the
Right.
expo. I think this was year 7 or year 8, because we went up to a guy. He won 3rd place. And I just, hey, man, congratulations, bro. You murdered it out there. Hey, keep it up. Hey, there were 25 barbers out there, and you got 3rd place out of 25. You should feel proud of yourself. And he looks at me, and his parents are there. He's a young kid, probably 18, 19 years old. He looks at his parents, and he's like, I appreciate that, Rick. He goes, you know what this trophy means to me? My dad told me he was proud of me. Rick, I dropped out of middle school. I never even went to high school. Doing drugs, doing stupid stuff. Decided to go to barber school. And I really enjoy barbering. And this is my first competition. I'm a student barber, and I won 3rd place. And barbering's changing my life, which I hear this from hundreds and hundreds of barbers. This is just his intimate story. He's like, my dad just told me he was proud of me. That was the first time my dad's ever told me that. And then they both hugged each other and got teary-eyed and things like that. And I'm like, this is why I do this. This is why I put this show together off for moments like this.
Absolutely. So here you are. You're working at a shop. The opportunity comes. You take over the shop. But your boss is now working for you, and you're progressing. And then at some point, you get this crazy idea to start your own barber convention. What got into you? Why did you want to start the Texas Barber Expo?
I've been licensed for about 5 years, and then I got on with Wall. So I started traveling a lot with Wall. It was crazy nuts back in the day, right? Like almost every weekend flying out somewhere for a barber event or a big hair show. I was coming back every week and telling my wife, Texas needs something like this. And I probably did that 6, 7 weeks in a row, and she probably got fed up. And she's like, if Texas needs it, you do it. And I said, shit, I don't know how to put a barber battle together on. I don't know how to do that. And she's like, then quit complaining. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so first thing I did, and some people know this, some people don't know this, I hit up Jay Majors on Facebook. And I was like, hey, man, I see you got this CT barber battle. Back then it was called CT barber battle. I don't even know where to start. I don't know grading schedule, like how to judge people, none of this stuff. Is there any way, could you help me out? And he's like, I got you. And I was like, great. So he told me what was required. We made it work. And he guided me and helped me. And I made it happen in 6 weeks. Like, it was nuts that I could make it happen that quick, but I did. In our first year in Corpus Christi, Texas, we had right under 800 people, about 60 barbers compete, and I had about 20 to 25 vendors.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, Jay Majors is on the move. He's making it happen. And if you can catch up, if you can run fast enough to get into pace with him, he will help you out. I think some people misunderstand that, and they're not able to run in pace with him to be able to ask the question. But if you can run in pace with Jay Majors, he'll do a gym session with you and walk through it. So I really appreciate him for that. He's an amazing dude. I love Jay Majors, man. He's a good dude. So you said you went to a lot of different events. What event inspired you the most? What was the last one before your wife said, do it yourself? What was that event that really said, you know what, this is the one that I need to do. I can do this.
Prior to me starting mine, someone did do one in Texas. It was Miss Linda and her son, Big Don, Brochet's Barber and Beauty Supply out of Houston, Texas. Okay. They did one year called the All-Star. It was around the All-Star basketball game. It was called, and I think that's the year it was in Houston or in Dallas. So it was like they fed off that, and they called it the All-Star Barber Battle. And I went, and I'm like, this is dope. I guess because it didn't cost me as much money to go when I was going to the other ones. And I just drove there. I was like, this is really cool. It was a one-day event. They had some classes in the morning where I learned a crap load of stuff, some great barbers. Because it was a smaller one. It wasn't as big as Jay's. Obviously, Jay's inspires me. But this one, I think because I was up close and personal.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. When I was able to see the haircut, like right there, I'm like, dude, that dude just put Tupac in this dude's head. What the hell? Never seen this in my entire life. And that's when I see them use the color and things like that. I'm like, this is dope. I was like, where are you from? Mississippi. Where are you from? Arkansas. I'm like, y'all came to Texas for this? They're like, first class prize is $500. That's worth it for us to come. And I'm like, okay, $500. We got to give away $500 to take in mental notes, right? Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. So then you start the Texas Barber Expo. 800 people show up, and that was a success to you. What were you anticipating?
I came myself if I can get 10 vendors, and that was my mindset when I started. The ball ring, it was at a 2 ball ring where they were waiting to hit it. So
1,000 square feet. So that's what I told myself. They told me it'll fit about 200, 250 people. And I was like, perfect, this will work. And within like week 2, we had signed up like 40 barbers to compete. I'm like, oh crap, maybe I need more space. So I told the lady, she's like, yeah, let's do 2,000 square feet then. I said, okay, great. And I said, how many vendors can I fit here? She's like, 10 max. Then like week 5, I sold like 14 vendor spots. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna need another one. She's like, okay, this is it. And then I was like, if I need any more, she goes, there's one more spot open. Like, we can open up.
I think it's that it.
So it was a total, I think, of 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. That literally the week before, I was like, all right, I need the whole ballroom. Just give me the whole ballroom, please.
That's amazing, man. And that was your first one.
Very first one.
Oh, man. And so I know, listen, I'm an entrepreneur. I know what it's like when you are doing a new thing. It's fun. It's exciting. You go from, like you said, 1 ballroom, 2, 3, more vendors. All of that is exciting. But then after the 4th year, 5th year, 7th year, 8th year, it just keeps going and going. And as you begin to do it, it becomes a little mundane. It is very easy to lose your passion for it. From what I understand, the TX Barber Expo now has been 10 years. So what keeps you wanting to do the event? Why is it so important to continue to do it? And why haven't you lost your passion for it?
I wanted to be a staple.
There are very few like CT and TX. And I see everyone just having such a good time networking with each other. I see at the end of the show, the vendors come up to me and say, hey, Rick, thank you so much. We'll definitely be here next year. The competitors, even when they lose, they're like, bro, it was an honor. It was such an honor just to be on that stage, bro. I got all these pictures and videos. Thank you so much, dude. And then just this past year, Charlie, he's a barber out of San Antonio, great guy. I saw him probably for 3 weeks in a row leading up to mine. Every week he told me, Rick, I'm just so happy you're going to have this one educator. That dude, I've been looking up to him for like 10 years. The fact that I'm going to be able to meet him and talk to him, thank you so much. It's things like that. Most barbers are very appreciative of the hard work I put in for it. And some of them have attempted to put on events and they're just like, dude, I don't know how you get it like this. It's not easy at all. And I'm like, no, bro, like about 12 weeks leading up to my event, I was gone every single weekend, just out promoting and networking and talking to people.
Yeah. So I talk about this a few times. Now that I'm an entrepreneur, I look back and I say, man, where were the red flags that let me know that I was an entrepreneur? Because I wasn't always an entrepreneur, right? I worked at Sprint for a little while. I drove paratrans. I was in the military. I did different things. And so when I look back at my time just working at different jobs, I realized, man, I used to watch Shark Tank. I watch Shark Tank a lot, right? And every time I watch Shark Tank, I would light up like, no, sell it this way. That's a great amount of money. Or no, don't sell that much of your business. Different things like that. And it really inspired me. And when I look back, I go, you know what? I think that was one of the red flags. Like I might have been an entrepreneur. And so for you, it seems like even like cleaning out the bathroom, like your desire to want to help out. What do you think those things are for you? What made you think, you know what? I'm different. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not just a worker bee.
It's funny you asked that because
my daughter, she is 8 years old.
still I
An Eskimo, right?
so my boys are
Football right now. They play tackle football. We're in Texas. You put them in as young as 5 years old, right? We freaking love football in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Well, about 2 months ago, I went on a website and I found where I can get wholesale mouthpieces.
really dope looking ones, like with names on it, things like that.
You know what? I'll spend $100 on them.
Football season comes, I'll get my boy.
Sell them. The boys are like, Daddy, I don't want to try and sell them. My daughter, she loves selling anything. So just this
Last Friday, we took her to the practice
field with the boys, and she walks around, and it's a huge, imagine 3 football field. And she
walks down the whole thing, 8 years old, walks around the whole thing.
I think my wife said she sold like 15 of them that day within 2 hours. So
I share that because
just in her, this is the first time. She's been doing this since she was 5 or 6. It was as if it was like that with me. I remember as young as 3rd grade selling pencils in class. I remember as young as a 5th, 6th grade getting rocks, selling them as door stoppers or paperweights. Around 14, 15, walking with my neighbor
with a lawnmower, knocking on people's doors asking for the craft.
At 16, 17, I had my own car audio business. I was installing radios and amplifiers, and that I just learned from trial and error. I didn't want to pay someone to do mine, so I burnt up my wire. I had to get me a new battery. I messed up with my car big time. But then when I learned it all, I just started doing it on the side up until I graduated high school. So I felt like I've always been that way. Now I wasn't as disciplined. I feel as if the military gave me that discipline needed to
Right. Bring the entrepreneur
spirit out. Because any 9 to 5 I had, I called in every week. I hated it. Then, no lie, if my mom, she would get more mad. My dad never did. My dad was like, son, you just got to do you. You got to be right. Do you. My mom was the one that she was getting more upset because I was like, oh, they let me go home early today. She said, why? I said, because I told them, what are you going to do? Fire me. I don't care. I don't need this damn job. I'm 16, 17 years old working at Walmart telling a 30-something-year-old man this, right?
probably they never fired me.
Because they obviously needed me. But she's like, you can't do that. That's disrespectful. And I'm like, they wanted me to do this, and I'm not supposed to do that. Forget that, right? So I think it's always been in me. I only had like 4 real jobs, like where I actually clocked in 9 to 5.
Right.
Other than that, I've just been straight hustler, just trying to provide for my family.
That's amazing, man. I try to ask people that all the time, like, because not everybody is like that. Not everybody has that drive, that passion. So let me ask you a question just to kind of sidebar. You did go to barber school and you learned, and now here you are 17 years later, you're doing your own barber show. You have students now competing. What is something that you would tell a student if they were in barber school? They've been going now for 2-3 months. They're not sure if this is the right thing. Maybe they got a flat tire on the way to school and you have to change the tire, get to school late, and they're like, man, is it really worth it? What would you tell a student to encourage them to keep going?
One story I
For every school I go to, this year alone, I probably went to 60 of them,
right.
Wow. I'm flying to Dallas to go to another one. So every school I go to, I share this exact same story. And I say, who's getting in here, getting ready to graduate barber school? And
Someone raised their hand. Tell us because
most states, Texas, we have the written exam and before you take the practical. And I said, who's taking the written? And some people were like, no, I haven't taken it. I was like, are you nervous about that? Some of them are like, yes. Some of them are like, no. I said, okay, I'm going to share this with you. If you fail it, it's okay. In Texas, you needed 1,500 hours to graduate barber school. At 1,000 hours, you could go take the written test. In high school, I had to take like remedial classes where I had to go to a special classroom and have someone help me one-on-one. College, I went 1 semester in college. I took all remedial classes and flunked every single one of them, like 40s and 50s. The psychology teacher there told me that she believes I have what they call test anxiety. She was because your daily grades were A's and B's, but you failed every test. Yeah, the test freaked me out. I knew this then. You need a 75 or better to pass this written exam to become a barber. I took it the very first time. Guess what I made? A 74.
Oh,
everyone's reaction.
That is everyone's reaction. So there's 100 questions. So I know I missed it by 1 point, by 1 question. I come home. I'm a little upset, a little without sitting there, and the wife said, hey, it's okay. You got this. Don't worry about this. We're going to study again. Because she was my right hand. She was helping me study everything. She's like, let's schedule it for another 2-3 weeks. I said, okay. So I scheduled it again, another 2-3 weeks. And the school
Tells me, hey, it's okay. Don't allow it to get the first time.
nothing wrong with that. You got this. I said, okay, cool. Go take it a second time.
nah, I'm not going to get this. Is too scary. 74 and a half.
74.
Again.
Oh.
You got it.
Kidding me. Now I'm like really frustrated and pissed, right? I'm like, dang it. And the wife's encouraging me again. The school was kind of like, dang, Rick, no one's failed it twice before. And I'm like, well, that's real encouraging. So
The third time.
now I'm already graduating barber school. This is the week I'm graduating barber school. So I should be scheduling my practical right now. I'm not still trying to take this written test. On the third time's charm, you got this, yada, yada, yada. Took it the third time. I made a 76.
Oh, wow.
I was like, yes, I did. And then some of the students in the school were like, Rick, you barely passed, bro. Like, you shouldn't be proud of yourself. You barely passed. And I said, well, you know what? Not that as well. I said, and I still don't remember who it was. Maybe it was a friend, a family member. I don't know. But someone told me, hey, Rick, you passed.
Yes, congratulations.
You're going to be a licensed barber now. You just got to go take that practical. There's doctors out there that probably made all D's throughout college, but you'll never know that because their certificate says that they're an MD, PhD doctor, and that's all you know.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? That's true.
Yeah.
I then actually cutting hair and doing everything like that.
Right.
That school, 19 years ago, and I actually met the proctor again. I see her every year because she works in the Valley area when I go promote, and she still remembers me. She tells the class about me and everything like that. I was the very first person, to her knowledge, in the state of Texas to make a 100 on the practical. She said, if I could have given you 110, I would. You did stuff you weren't even required to do. I said, I wanted to make sure I didn't have to come take this test again.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, you were wounded by the other test.
Yeah, but it's right then and there that I knew the man upstairs was telling me, hey, man, this is you. This is for you. This is what I have planned for you. And I've got some great things planned for you. And this is why you needed to do it. You needed to go through a little struggle to then see the success. And you're barely getting your career started. I hear that at the schools. And I tell them, look, man, I share that. I share them about me going to China, Dubai, India, Mexico City, Mumbai. I mean, you name the country, the city, I've been there just to cut hair. I share all those big things and everything where they're like, damn, this dude's doing it. And then I share them bad stuff about me doing this. And I tell them, look, it doesn't matter where you start. It matters where you finish. And right now I'm finishing on the freaking on top of the top. Like whether it may not be your top or may not be his top, but it's my top. And I'm not in comparison with anyone, just myself. I said, that's what you guys need to do. Just worry about yourself.
Now, here's the thing, though. I mean, it's not that deep, man. I went to barber school. I didn't get my license. It's all good. I'm cutting hair. I got some clientele. I graduated barber school 3 years ago, and I never got my license, but it's okay. What do you say to that person?
I know several like that as well. It's a mental thing for them because I know some of them that there's like, bro, I just can't pass that test, bro. I've taken it 4 or 5 times just like you. Bro, you can pass this. You just got to study harder. I know it's difficult. I know we're not test takers. I know we weren't built that way, but I'm looking at your haircuts and your haircuts are fire. And right now you're working in your garage, spare bedroom in your house because you're scared the state's going to come in and kick you out of barbershop. I said, bro, you know, you could be making tenfold if you just went and got that license. You need to work harder to get that license. But like we spoke earlier, some people are content and happy with what they have and they don't care to get any better in life. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the guy who just wants to pay his bills, provide for his family, or the guy who wants to pay his bills, his mom bills, his grandma's bills, his great grandkids' bills. There's nothing wrong with either one. It's just a mindset for each person. I've hired barbers. They make $300 in one day. They're like, all right, boss, I'm out. I'm like, what? What do you mean you're out? They're like, I'm good. I'm capped out, bro. I made the money I need for the day. I'll be back tomorrow. And I'm like, $300? You're out for just because you made $300? Like, bro, you can make like $700, $800 in a day. That I can't teach. I can't teach that.
Yeah. That's hard though, right? Especially when it's somebody you love, you want to help them out, and you're like, hey, bro, listen, here's X, Y, and Z. I'm laying the path out for you, but they don't want to take it and do it. You're right. That's something that you teach them everything else, but you can't teach them ambition. That's rough. All right, man. This has been great, man. I really appreciate you. What I would like just to wrap up here, we'll wrap up here in about 5 more minutes. But what I do want to say is, as you're progressing, you finally come up on the 10-year anniversary. And I know that was a big moment for you because it has to be. I mean, what do you feel like was bigger, the first time with the success or the 10th time, even though it is technically more people and more years? But which one, if you had to compare the first time to the 10th time, which one do you feel more satisfied with?
It's not comparable because so my first year was in Corpus Christi, Texas. My second year, Corpus Christi, Texas. This is where I live, the city I love, born and raised. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we went to San Antonio. I said, gonna bring it back to Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi is a small town in Texas. We're about 450,000 people compared to a town of San Antonio that's about 3 million people. I had big sponsors tell me, nope, we're not going. It's too small of a market for us. We're not going to be there. I had small mom and pop vendors tell me, yep, we're not going to go there. We don't think you're going to succeed in little old Corpus Christi, yada, yada, yada. I said, you know what? I want to prove these people so wrong. I do. And we did. We had more people that we did year 9. We had more vendors that we ever had in the history of the expo. We sold more hotel rooms that we'd ever sold in the history of the expo. And I did it all in my little hometown of Corpus Christi, Texas.
Man, so tell me about that, man. How did you feel? To take me to that moment. The building's empty. All the trophies have been given away. You're looking at your numbers. They're sweeping up paper towels from the floor. The day's over. Tell me about that moment.
Exhausted. Because that day, I think I was up at 4 a.m. and we didn't leave the convention center until like midnight. So yeah, number one, I was definitely exhausted. Number two, none of it can be done without my staff. And everyone that wears a staff shirt, and most people know this, but if you wear a staff shirt, I consider you family, or you are literally family. You're literally blood to me. None of them, never stated this anywhere, none of them want me to pay them to help me. One of them offered to, I'll pay you this much an hour. Not one of them will accept any money from me. They're like, nope, we're family. So I'm just here to help you. I just love to see you succeed, and I just want to help you. And we had this year probably about 65 staff members on board. Yeah, I mean, it truly is just a support. The feeling's great. Obviously, hugging everyone, kissing everyone, telling them thank you so much for helping me out. They were there at 6 a.m. with me too, and they didn't leave till midnight with me as well. And we were all just beat and exhausted, but it was a great feeling. Now, because I did it in my city, I'm walking around and Joe Blow, who I didn't even know at the gym or at the local grocery store, hey, you're the dude who put on that big barber event here. Because we got so much local advertising. All the news stations were hitting almost like 2 weeks in a row. We're just going to every news station, magazines. They were just wanting to do interviews because it's the biggest barber event in Texas. So they're like, wow, you're bringing it to little old Corpus Christi.
Wow, that's amazing, man. I think your biggest accomplishment is having 65 people follow you into the trenches at 6 a.m. That's huge. Be able to galvanize the people to help build something because they truly believe in it. You know what I mean? So your passion is spilled over into those people. I like what you said, that they're family, like literally, figuratively, and literally, they're family. Yeah, I know what it is. Let's end on a good note. I know you got your Money Mondays and you got your tips for barbers. So I'm going to ask for someone who may have been listening to this and thinking like, man, am I ready to open up a shop? Or am I ready to become a barber? Or maybe they've been thinking about cutting hair. Because I really like to try to help that person who's on the cusp of doing the thing and being able to encourage them to overcome it. I know you mentioned in one of your videos how you had people who say they want to do real estate, but they haven't bought their first thing. It's funny how you break that wall and you go through, and then all of a sudden it feels like it's easy, but we don't remember that first moment of getting there. So if somebody's in that place, what tip would you tell them to try to overcome whatever apprehension they have?
Someone wanting to become a barber, I would highly suggest that they know and understand, because what they see is what they see on social media. And they're probably only seeing the big influencers that are barbers. They're loving life and living life. And they're like, shoot, they can do that. I can do that. And you most definitely can. But just know that their overnight success took about 10 years. Know that going in, that you're not going to become that person in a year or two. Your first 2 to 3 years, now with social media, I think it's a lot easier. I think it'll take them only about a year. But my first 2 to 3 years as a barber sucked balls. Like I had part-time jobs. I was throwing the newspaper at 2 a.m. from 2 to 4 just to make ends meet, because I was only cutting $300 a week and my bills were way more than $1,200. So yeah, they need to know that it's going to suck. Financially, it will suck. You're going to sit in that barber shop for 6 to 8 hours a day and maybe do 2 or 3 haircuts. And you're going to have to do it again and again. And then Friday, you may be able to do 5 to 8 haircuts. And then you think you're winning. And then Saturday, you're doing 8 to 10. But then come Tuesday, you're back to 3 to 4. And it's going to continue like that for a long period of time until you build up the clientele and that you trust them. They trust you as well. To the barber that's on that verge, like, man, I think I want to open up my own barbershop. Number one, don't do it for the money, because you want an environment that's best fits you. The environment you're at doesn't best fit you. And like me, the way I said, hey, man, there's things here I wish I could change. Fortunate for me, it was the same place. But if that's you, do it because you want that change, right? Because you're going to be in that position of that owner as well one day, if that's your choice. Exactly how you feel currently towards that owner, your barbers are going to feel like that towards you as well. So just know that as well. But financially, what I always advise the barbers is not go in, because the average barber I talk to that tells me they want to open a barber shop, when I mentor them, they're like, all right, Rick, I got this place, this many square feet, I can fit 10 chairs. If I rent it out for this much per chair, when it's all said and done, the barbers pay all my bills. So I get my rent free. I don't pay nothing, bro. All the money I make cutting hair, cash money, free money. I have no expenses. And I said, that is great. But what happens when you come back from vacation one week and that one barber you've been pissed off at because he's a little cancerous, he opened up his own shop and took all the barbers with you because he was $25 cheaper in booth rent. And now you have no clue. You came back and your shop's empty. Now what? What I would advise is the only way you should open up a barbershop is if you can pay all the bills on your own for a minimum of 6 months to a year. The minute you can actually get barbers to come into you and help you pay that, great. Touch none of that money. Keep that money savings and use your money the way you were using it before.
Wow, so good. Such good advice, man. Well, listen, man, you are definitely the people's barber. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead